Please welcome Dr. Russel Jones.
Thank you, Andrew. Left and right and center. Okay. I think I'm going to actually start here by asking you questions. So I like to ask questions because we teach, of course. And so how about here? What is a state function? What is a state function? Anybody know how to define that? From thermodynamics, right? Yes? Okay, 1 point. Well, if you'd like to, or I could just show the answer, but it's up to you. So, okay, so here it says that you get a single value for a given set of things that are going into it. Only one value, unique, and that's a key thing here as well. Then we have some other aspects here also that are also here, okay? And so then I have something else, because why not have things also be like state functions, such as permeability, KR curves, capillary pressure curves. What is stopping us from expressing them in the same way, okay? And then it helps then if you input things like S or like stress or capillary groupings, then you can estimate them and you get a single value, and then so some things happen that I'm going to show you that are remarkable. Okay, all right, okay. And then it would be nice if they all had the same inputs, if they're consistent with each other. Wouldn't that be a nice thing? Yes or no? Yes. Okay, yes. Good answer. Good answer. Okay. So, except that the state now is that we use these empirical functions that we fit and tune to some experimental data, and then they are static. And they don't change much. And we're happy with that. But they don't have anything there because here it says, whoops, let me go back, that if everything here heads up, then the KR curve should go up as the S value heads up. And then we have the exponent here, but there's a lot of physics here that has been lost in this. And we just, right? And so the key is to be able to have physics here as well, and to bring that in so that we can predict better and have things work better also, okay? So everything here now is out. You're not going to see these curves. We're going to here in this talk, okay? So some problems are that if we start down, say at this point right down here, which is at low pressure, if we're at low pressure, we know that we have what type of phase? A gaseous phase, right? At low pressure. And so if we start here and then we have some path where we move like so, and we go on the outside here, all of this is a single phase, single phase, single phase, single phase, still single phase, single phase, and then we get to oil. So where did it change to oil in that path? Somewhere it has to actually change. And that causes us a lot of problems, okay? So then here, if we go to the next slide, I'm just going to head here. So if we say this, then it is bad because I've got curves that I measured at the surface for gas. I've got curves that I measured for each phase, and we call them gas KR curves, right? Okay, so we have to say that phase type that we get, and then we input here, okay? But these labels may change from time step to time step, which causes us havoc in our codes, okay? So if that happens, then the KR changes, and KR is proportional to the speed of flow of things in our ground, right? So it changes speeds of our fronts that we have, but it also changes S values. And so here, if I'm here, and then all of a sudden I switch at the next time step over to here, I have a big change, right? And so that causes us a lot of problems, and the time steps then have to go way, way down in order to, right? Because everything changes too fast, and it says, oh, we can't do this. Okay, so that hurts us. And I'm going to show you that the recovery factors you get can change by 20 to 30%. Original oil in place just because of a phase identification problem. So it has an impact, right? This is not just mathematics and fun stuff, but it has, right, as well. Okay. Okay, so gosh, it would be great to throw out these functions and bring in physics, all right? It would be great then to have them coupled based upon the same things as well. And then we're going to show that the amount that comes out with oil depends on these things to a certain extent anyway, okay? And so it would be great if we could write something in a state function way so that everything is consistent and continuous in composition space, wouldn't it? And make sense and be physical and be more accurate. Wouldn't that all be great? Yes, it sounds great. I don't know if we've done it exactly yet, but we're trying. Okay? All right. So then, if we have state functions, we can mathematically express them like this, where phi can be any function, like K or KR or capillary pressure. And the inputs here are right there. So then, if we have that, and we assume, if I go back, that these partials here are constants, if we want to, that's an assumption now, all right? Then we can express it really easily here, and we can get something like this where there are no exponents anymore. We don't need the exponents, yet we can still fit data, okay? Because we have the right physics now, okay? And so we have to solve here with data. Of course, we still have to have data to get our constants, to tune it, right? Okay? Then, and so we can, so then here, I've got constant here that we have, but we have constants here also. And we have a reference state here, and we have to specify what that reference state is, okay? All right. So let's see how this works, because, you know, so let's take a simple case where we have KR, a function of two things here, S, and the X, which tells us the specific spots where each phase is in our pore structure, okay? Are they able to actually flow from one pore to the next pore, okay? All right? And if that's true, then we get only one value of KR for the input S and X. And so that makes it very, very nice as well. Okay, thus we can express it this way in a state function scheme, okay? And we can calculate everything here, and we are doing that now, but we haven't done it yet, so let's just assume that they are constants for now, okay? And then it says, well, what we have to actually have is how does S change and how does X change with S in our path in the SX space. If we know that, then we can predict KR, okay? All right? So then at the end, we get something incredibly simple, very, very easy here, without the exponents again. And if these are constants, then we just have to estimate this, and then we have to specify our state that we want for our reference point. Now, the reference point is arbitrary, just like it always is in state functions. You can choose whatever you want, okay? Once it's been picked, you can't change it, okay? So what we're going to actually do here is to say, gosh, it would make sense to pick that to be where KR is 0. Right? And so if you do that, then this guy is going to be 0, and S is SR, and X is XR at the same point. Okay? And so then I get something like this, and then we can express it like this, and then it's very easy. I mean, it's actually very, very easy. Okay? All right. So let's see how this works then with the example data. So what we have to do then is we write this down right here, and then we have to express what is our path in the XS space here with this function in this case. But we understand that when S is equal to 1, then the X has to be 1, right? And the KR value should be 1 also, so we get rid of some of these constants, okay, right there. And then we have to set one value of SR, because here now we're going to have a suite of values of SR, not just one anymore, like, right? We're going to have a suite of them here as well. But we have to have one value that has been measured, right? Then we can tune and we can fit this exponent here, okay, right here, okay? So, so we can fit all of the Corey curves that we typically have now, which is the empirical function that I just showed. We can fit them. In the extreme cases, it's very easy to fit them. Okay, so we can get these complex shapes here with that simple thing. And then we can get ones that are like this as well. We can cover the entire range. So we can match the same data we have now at the least and put this in to our codes, okay? But we have other benefits here as well, okay? Because you know, if I say that the path has changed and we go backwards now in our path, right, which might happen if we do WAG, for instance, and we take a different pathway in XS space, I now know when we end up at the next SX point what my value of KR is. It's predictive, okay, because it's based upon physics here, okay? All right? So let's take a complex case where we have 3 hydrocarbon phases from West Texas, which is a case that we really haven't been able to solve well, so most of the commercial codes punt, and they don't solve this problem. Some codes out there try to, and so I'm going to show those, but I'm going to show now this is an easy problem to solve. Okay, this is not hard. Every phase has a state function there. Okay, so we have to tune it for every phase. So we have to have some data. You have to have data. Okay, all right. But here it has this phase that forms an extra phase where we have gas phase. We labeled it just now. We have the L1 phase and the L2 phase, which is here also. But we're going to throw those out. And in this code that we're going to write, we never use the word oil, water, or gas. They never appear in the code at all. Okay? And then wonderful things happen with that. Okay? So here is this case where we took the code from Texas, which is one of the codes that does okay with this, because there aren't many, okay? But we have to specify how can we identify phases. And so there are many ways there, and one of them is to say, okay, if it's down here, then it's not dense, so we're going to call that a gas phase. If it's something right up here, then we're going to call it the L2CO phase, CO2 rich phase. And then if it's way up here and more dense, we're going to call that the oil phase. And then we're going to input those in to our static curves and get those values. But these things flip and change all of the time. This is a very complex problem to solve, okay? But no longer here, okay? Now, if we change this value, though, then guess what? Our phase identification changes, right? And so if we go from here to something just up here, then what we have back here, which is our gaseous phase now, over here, we didn't have a gas phase. See that? That was the L2 phase here, and then it became gas because it went over that point where we're trying to say what phase type that was, right? And so that causes us a lot of problems because what value should you use there? And in fact, you can't, it's extremely hard, and there isn't a single value. You can't do it. The phases will flip. There's no possible way to get out of that problem, okay? All right? So then here it shows you that we can get things now with our code now where our phases are continuous in composition space. Where we form two phases, we have it right here. Where we form the extra third phase, it's all like this. If you plot codes now, you're going to see right in the center of a three-phase zone, you'll see a two-phase zone. Okay, and you'll have spots in this, okay? But now it becomes smooth in this space. If we take it here, what we see in these codes now is that if we do this, because we're continuous and smooth, and the KR values are continuous over all of composition space, then the time steps can remain large at their maximum values, okay? With the current way, you're going to see up and down time steps all over the place, right? Because you're having things flip and saturations are changing. So then, if we take this case here, what I'm going to actually show is that the recovery changes a whole lot. This is a 5-spot pattern here, okay? And you can see that right here, we've got spots where the K is down here low, and then it goes up here. And so what we can see is that if we change the amount of the DSLIM, where we identify which phase we want to call it, the recoveries change, in this case, at this time of 1 by over what? That's about 0.2. 0.2. This is a huge change. Do you think that's important? I would say yes, okay? I would say yes. If you do it our way, you always get the same answer because it's not a function of the phase identification problem, which is shown down right here, okay? All right. So now we could add other things. We could add stress. We could add the area that we have. We could add capillary number. We could add the contact angle. We can do all of these things and be able to forecast how these KRs things change. And so here we have shown with data that we can estimate these things and we can see how things change here with the S. So on this axis is the contact size that we have at that phase, and you can see it goes up and then it goes down, okay? So there are a lot of things that we still have left to actually do here, all right? Okay, so then we add a third term in that case, right? And then we can do the same thing, very easy, and then we can predict that as well, okay? So the idea then is we need to understand petrophysics, do a lot better job of that for compositional codes, especially, okay? And then we don't want to call anything oil and gas in our codes. That's a real change, isn't it? That's a radical change. At the surface, we can do that, okay? But not downhole, okay? Simple functions again, where we tune them first and then we forecast them then also. And what I just showed is really the first case where we've solved a 4-phase problem actually, because we had water there too, right? And you can come up with the KR functions for that based upon physics as well. And you can see that it's very easy now, and it runs faster because of the time step sizes are bigger as well, okay? And it's a practical thing because it affects what we estimate out. And so use the old way, which we do in the oil business. We're hard to change, right? Okay, we're hard to change. But your recoveries may be wrong just because of a problem like this, okay? All right. So we have this group at our school, and so it would be great there because what we're trying to actually do is to invent new things that matter, come up with new ideas, okay? But we need company support. If we don't have company support, I have less students, you have less, then that isn't good because they aren't being trained by me anyway. Of course, there's others that are just as good. But it would be great to have folks here join up, okay? Because we also go through these areas here as well, and so that's what I thought I would say. So that is my talk. Thank you very, very much for your patience.
Thank you, Dr. Johns. We'll have a microphone at the back
here in the middle. So those who have questions, please line up there and ask questions. State your name and affiliation. That would be appreciated.
Have to be questions.
Well, let me ask the
Of course,
first one while they're
it is
kind of-
8:30 in the morning.
Let me ask the question before Dr. King asks you the question. So let's say I use the old ways and am able to history match 50 years of history based on whatever relative permeability that I've got. So, and then you have your enhanced model with the state function. You also get a history match.
Yes.
So you expect that without doing anything different, both got a history match when I forecast.
You could always match it in either way.
Right. So,
but you may have to shift some of the KR curves.
Correct. I turn a lot of knobs to
values.
get a match, realistically, hopefully.
Yeah.
So you're suggesting that having 50 years of history match, using the old ways, going on to a forecast, I may be off quite a bit, realistically?
Yes, it is possible. Of course, every case is different, but what it says here, if you put in things that are good with physics, then you may not have to history match and change all of these knobs as much because you have more physics there, okay? Whereas right now, we have to change a lot of things. We may have to change K of some zones, we may have to change KR. KR is the biggest target.
Correct.
Right? To change in order to match what we see at these wells. And part of that may be because it's just unphysical.
Right. Now, one thing you did mention too also, that the time stepping with your state function, you could go to the maximum time step without much of an error.
Yes. Here, yes. And I think what we could do too is to take time steps that are very large if we went with the MPES.
Okay.
Well, here it's that, but if we go with other schemes, we could potentially even become bigger and not have problems to find the right answer. Because the other nice thing here is that if you don't have changes in things, then the equations of state converge. All of the right here, everything always is able to work out well because the prior step size had a good guess for the next equation of state calculation with 3 phases.
Right.
And so it really helps it even in that end of the spectrum.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Dr. Mike King?
Mike King, Texas A&M. Good morning,
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Could you go back to slide 18, please?
18.
I think it was 18. Forward, one with the partial derivatives. Forward.
Forward, okay, because I can't see the 18 here.
One more. Yes, okay.
Good.
So as reservoir engineers, we're good at hacking stuff together. So we'll stick a rel perm function in. Someone will use Corey, someone else will use Sorici. There's a whole cottage industry.
Whole bunch of empirical type of expressions.
Just for 2-phase.
Yes.
And then there's a whole nother cottage industry for 3-phase.
Yes.
I don't think there are any cottages for 4-phase, but stuff will happen. But a fundamental question about your input. If we start with KR functions of S, X, and A, then at any one point in phase space, there's a single value of relative perm.
For that single phase, because, because if I have this one, X, and this A here, for that single phase, and then if I have some extra phases, I have this guy for every phase. 3 phases, I have 3 of these equations.
In contrast, if instead of starting with fixed KR functions, we start with the derivatives, then it actually becomes much more natural to look at things like hysteresis, path dependence.
Yes.
Because if I have KR as a function of saturation, there's no such thing as hysteresis. So I just want to make sure I understand the implications here. I think what you're saying is that by working with how these functions change, as distinct from I've imposed an answer, that you're in a position to include much more of sort of the local physics in how you develop these functions.
Right.
So your starting point is absolutely different from what the industry's been doing.
That is an excellent point, because here I have everything here, and I have to estimate X for that given S. So I have some path function.
Yeah.
But that path function will change if we're sticking things in or we're pulling things out. And so it leads us to a different XS space, but then there's a single value. So we can accommodate this very easily this way.
Your fundamental description is much more about path
Right.
than it is about saturation.
Exactly, but we have to understand that pathway by some techniques that we're exploring.
Thank you.
Yes, very good question though.
Good.
All right, very good.
Any more questions? If not, once again, thank you, Dr. Johns.
You are welcome.